But there was time when this stuff meant a great deal to you.
Certainly. I mean, I've had this conversation with Ted quite a bit. And Ted says, you know, I'm sick of having a 35-year-old tell me if my building's good or not. And there's a lot of honesty and reality to that. It's like people have come to town. 2 years ago, I got the C Award for Stefan Lemperle's house. That really pissed me off. I mean, I was mad. I wasn't upset. Because that project was one of the best we've ever done. And you look at the jurors, and I walked up, I go, are you kidding me? Did you really just give me the C Award? I prefer no award at all. So you start to keep thinking. Your game has to get into, I'm here, not here. And if you start thinking, I'm here trying to get there, you'll never be here. And again, you sort of go numb on that and that blind ignorance. I can achieve anything. And that's the beauty of America. Just coming back from London, it truly is the beauty of this country that we're all just so many different people, so many heights, you know, sizes, weights, colors, and intellects. And everybody can achieve. And if you keep thinking you can achieve, you keep pushing that ball every day, you'll do it.
So you pushed the ball to Lemperle. You built this wonderful house in La Jolla.
Got the C Award.
And you got the C Award.
Yeah, very pleased with the C Award.
And we're going to get some pictures of it, but
here's the beauty. When I don't go to the local chapter awards, I always win. When I go, I get the C Award. So I'm not going anymore.
But you can't pick up that house and move it elsewhere.
Can't pick it up and move it elsewhere now.
I'm sure everybody's been wondering, at least I was, how these names of these buildings come about. The State, the Prospect, the Blue Block. Some are more obvious. The Q, maybe not so obvious. Is there a conversation between you and others about these names?
I think I become very sarcastic and satirical, and my wife becomes kind of funny about it. And you know, we'll look at a building. I go, "That's horrible." She goes, "Well, that's a shame." So she's kind of sweet about it, and I'm kind of a little more biting on it. And so we had this kind of this ongoing laughter about the stupid names they name all these buildings in San Diego that are all luxury apartments. I don't know if anybody ever seen a luxury apartment, but I don't know if it exists in the city, but everybody has a luxury apartment. They're available right now. And they're all villa this and villa that, and they're like Spanish names or Tuscan names or all these stupid villa this, you know, what have you. So we try to, you know, name the building after what it is. That was, the Blue Box was a blue building. And it was a box, it was a blue box. Motor Villas was where MV Motors, GP Motors was. So it was Moto, and then we were making fun of the villas. The State is on State, and it was supposed to be on a estate house downtown. The Q was after James Bond, which I'm a big kind of James Bond fan. So I wanted to be called the White House, and when he said that's not going to work, because that's how it started.
Could have been the West Coast White House.
West Coast. So the Q stuck, and so, for instance, our new project that Matthew just started yesterday, no permit, but that's okay. I'll tell you how I did that. We're grading and removing 1,800 yards of earth, and it's all legit. That's called the Charmer, because it's India and Chalmers. So they're all kind of like, you know, I think my life is one big Seinfeld episode. I think I surround my friends that are all about being part of that kind of stupid nature, because I think life is all about having fun and being positive and humorous about it. I think if you get way too serious, it's just going the wrong way.
When we talk about history and certainly San Diego, I think there's always been this thing that's puzzled me, and it's come up in your and my conversations, that about 100 years ago, Irving Gill was passed over for building the Panama, California Exposition in Balboa Park by an out-of-town architect, Bertram Goodhue. Right. And it kind of goes back to this point about regionalism and how we feel about our own. And do you feel displaced or embraced by your fellow San Diegans? I mean, not that you're Irving Gill and not that you're Bertram Goodhue, but that we tend to always like somebody from someone else's backyard, and we bring them in, and we think they will bring us things that our neighbors can't. Have you suffered under that or felt that?
Yeah, I think that's endemic of most cities, though, because everywhere I go, I just came back from Seattle, and the Seattle AIA was, you know, so generous, so gracious, so complimentary. I was on a jury up there, and San Francisco, the same thing, in the Bay Area, the same thing, and if it's in the middle of the country or in Florida, you're always appreciated out of town more so than in town. And I think that was the problem Gil had. They wanted a powerhouse name. And you'll see we've had some buildings in San Diego built by outside guys.
One of the things that I think probably on behalf of everybody in the audience probably want to know if there are unifying themes that come out in your work. Is there a consistency? Is there a oneness to them? Is there something you look at any of these projects and say, yeah, I mean, I think some of us could drive by and say, Jonathan Segal. But how do you feel about that?
Well, I think perhaps the language or the massing or proportions are all going to have similarities to it. But each building truly is about an idea. The Titan was about doing a 6-story building in wood framing with no elevators, no common stair towers, parking on grade. There's these ideas. The K-Lofts was about doing an affordable housing project and not having the city contribute any funds whatsoever. The Union was about the first and only photovoltaic-driven apartment house in the city with no subsidy. You know, every project is about an idea. It isn't a format where it's, you know, some developer going, I need 50 units in there, just jam them in there. Make sure they have balconies, make sure they have, you know, plastic windows and, you know, no, the air conditioners at the end, and they're kind of horrible spaces, and they're all dark and ugly. I mean, that's pretty much, I think, how most developers start, right?
I don't know. Maybe we'll find out in the Q&A portion. So are you sort of a scientist, and this is your lab, and you're saying, my main hypothesis is, and I want to test that hypothesis, and then it yields something on the other end. It yields price per square foot or whatever you want. But if you start with a hypothesis rather than, here's the lot, here's the drawing, I'm going to, you know, mix and match the two. I mean,
there's always a thesis. The Charmer, the latest home we're doing, is all about California prototypical courtyard housing. We wanted to develop a project that was around the courtyard of the cars and then have little bungalows that all had their own little gardens in it. And that was the idea. And we were sticking to that idea. No matter what happened, that pattern and that idea was going to be there. And then we just start bringing in the kind of the pragmatic part of square footage and how you build it and how it's going to work with the topography. And you just keep beating on the thing, and it beats back at you, and you beat on it, and it beats back at you. And a good story about that one is that's a 30,000 square foot property. It's made up of 2 lots. One has a certain zone, one has another zone. This allows you to do 9 units, and you have no community review. This one allows you to do unlimited units and no community review. But if you couple the 2 together as one project, the 9 limit governs, the 9 unit governs. So we have to learn all these rules. We really don't like the community involvement because they really don't want to hear our story. So we try to like fly under that radar and keep away, and it's a path of least resistance. If I've got to go through the community to review our project, you can look at $40,000 getting pissed away just like that. So where's the bonus? It's like piss away $40,000, and let me throw a little lead in at you and piss away another $25,000. That goes absolutely nowhere, no benefit to the property. Why don't you do what's right? Why don't you develop architecture that responds to the climate? And why don't you make it proper for the site? That's lead, not some stupid checklist. Sorry about that.
as we look through these images, I tend to think that the newer projects have borrowed from the previous projects, the predecessors. Are you learning things and applying them to the new project that maybe the rest of us can't see? Are there hidden things that, and I'm not talking about ornament, I'm talking about, is there a progression of the design theory that you're applying based on its?
There's always parts and bits. You know, you try to, as these spaces get smaller, it's, well, how do you, I mean, this is how silly it gets. How do you make a passageway from a corridor to a bedroom? Well, if you have a swing door and you have an 11 by 10 room, it's going to take all the room. So you want a pocket door. Well, if you want a pocket door, how do you make that? Do you make it on a track, or do you actually use a real pocket door? And the hollow core pocket doors are kind of bad. So we use a track. Well, they all start to fall off the tracks. So you sort of like try to develop this vocabulary as you go forward, that you hopefully don't continue to make the same mistakes. We start to develop the notion of when the building hits the ground, it wants to be at a concrete block. So the waterproofing starts to become a non-issue. There's these real subtle things that drive some of the architecture that people really don't understand.